In this video, I'm ranking 19 controversial fitness topics as either overrated or underrated. And for some extra scientific credibility, this time I'm pulling in exercise scientist Dr. Mike Israetel, who not only has a PhD in sport physiology, but is a competitive bodybuilder himself. I'm giving us 15 seconds each to explain why we think each item is overrated or underrated, and we'll be covering 3 categories: training, nutrition, and hot fitness topics. Here we go.
The first category is training, cheat reps, also known as ego lifting.
Go first.
It is a journey without an end or a purpose. When you think it through, cheat reps are stupid on almost all counts. You end up having a higher probability of injury, a lower probability of stimulating the target muscle, and a very difficult time tracking.
I agree that they're overrated. I think for the most part, people should use good technique. I would argue that on certain exercises, for example, bicep curls, if doing a little bit of cheating and slight momentum allows you to get another rep and then you control the eccentric, that might be an extra controlled eccentric that you wouldn't have gotten if you hadn't used that little bit of momentum. So I think that they can have some value, but I would still say overall, mostly overrated.
Muscle soreness.
I think it can be a good proxy that you did actually hit the target muscle. It can be an indication that the muscle you were trying to hit was in fact stimulated. But I think a lot of people are under the impression that if you didn't get sore, that means you didn't have a good workout or you didn't grow muscle, which is definitely not true. And in that sense, I would say it's overrated.
I think it's become fashionable lately in the evidence-based community to say that soreness is overrated, or more specifically, that soreness doesn't really mean anything and that soreness is only a side effect of novelty. I think that fails on about 7 or 8 logical grounds. When you do more volume, more intensity, proper progression, when you come closer to failure, when you generate a lot of metabolites, when you focus on the eccentric, when you train along muscle lengths, all of those things tend to cause more soreness. And to me, that sounds like a very, very close link causatively to hypertrophy. It's okay if you're not getting sore, but if you're not progressing and you feel like you're understimulating, trying to get sore is probably a good idea. And if you're getting sore, you have 99 problems, but stimulus is not one.
Okay.
Training each muscle only once a week, also known as a bro split.
There are better ways to train than training one muscle group once a week, especially if you're talking about small muscle groups. Like if you train your rear delts once a week or your biceps once a week, there's absolutely no way they take that long to recover. You just missed opportunity. And legs or something, or if you have a huge back is fine once a week, but it's also not optimal. I think you should train muscles when they recover. That generally occurs anywhere between every day or 2 times a week.
Yeah, I agree. A little bit of devil's advocate. The latest frequency research does show that a bro split is a viable approach, but I would say it's probably not the optimal approach.
Don't spend 2 hours per workout 5 days in the gym to do a perfectly fine approach. No one in here in the gym right now wants perfectly fine. They want jacked. It's the same number of days a week. You show up and not do a bro split, you get better results.
What about training to failure?
So I think overrated. I think that the research shows that there's not a huge difference in terms of hypertrophy or strength if you go all the way to failure or if you stop a couple reps shy. I think people think going to failure is super, super important. And I think you have to know what failure feels like, but I do think overall it's overrated and not as important as a lot of bodybuilders think.
Agreed, and I would add that most of the people that are saying that failure is super important are coming from an egotistical perspective in which they need to emotionally drain themselves in the gym, and it's more cathartic and psychological and less to do with what gets optimal results.
Nice. Okay, so I'm here editing this video now, and I kind of want to update my answer just a little bit. I still kind of think that training to failure is slightly overrated. However, there's a brand new meta-analysis that did find that on average, training to failure was better for muscle growth than not training to failure. That doesn't mean that every set you do needs to be taken to failure, but I would say it's important. If you don't take any sets to failure, I would say you are leaving gains on the table. If I had to update my answer, training to failure is properly rated to slightly overrated. But I'm gonna give Mike a quick call and see if he wants to give an update. Hey, Mike. In our last video, you said you thought training to failure was overrated. I'm just wondering if you'd want to update that.
Yes, training to failure is even more overrated. Probably more overrated than ever because of that recent meta-regression that came out that said that training to failure was superior for hypertrophy, but it turns out that's only the case if you train with very low volumes, you're not trying very hard, you're smaller, you're weaker, and you don't train very often. If you train a lot and you're really serious and you're really trying, in that very study, they say training to failure has no advantage. And because most people didn't read the study, almost no one read the study, I guess, then it's more overrated than ever.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, the mind to muscle connection.
You go first.
I think that people who prefer to talk about mind-muscle connection sometimes are right in a nuanced way, but often are doing a mind-muscle connection at the expense of good technique and a lot of load and the right movements and especially progression. So as long as your technique is good, you have progression, then mind-muscle connection becomes important, but it's very much a quaternary or tertiary variable.
I completely agree. I think it's one of those things that matters and is generally good, but I think people overstate how much it actually matters. You can get a good mind-muscle connection and not necessarily have a sufficiently stimulative set if you didn't push that set hard.
How do you feel about pumps?
Okay, I'm gonna say properly rated. I think pumps are fun and they make training more enjoyable. They probably have some connection to hypertrophy, and I think people think that pumps are good and fun, and they are, so yeah, properly rated.
Sure. I just mean underrated, and I think pumps are great. And in the evidence-based space, I think pumps are underrated. Whether or not you got a really good pump is a good gauge of if the target muscle was hit, if it's the right place that they're getting pumped, and also a good gauge of volume.
The next category is nutrition. Let's start with dirty bulking.
I think dirty bulking can be fun. It can lead to strength gain, but overall, it leads to vastly disproportionately more fat gain than it does muscle gain. And for that reason, I think it's overrated.
I mean, I have the stretch marks and loose skin to prove it. So I used to do it. I thought it was great. It was a lot of fun. It caused a lot of irreversible side effects. And I wish I would have stayed leaner. And it sure as shit would have gotten me laid more often in college.
Natural testosterone boosters.
Go first.
Yes, this would be super simple. There's no such thing.
If you want to boost your testosterone, take
Testosterone. It comes in a needle.
I mean, even if there was an over-the-counter herb that could boost testosterone, there's no evidence that it would do anything significant or noticeable for muscle mass, right? Which is why most people, I think, take it.
Also, the thing is that if an herb boosts testosterone, you have to ask by what mechanism is it doing that. If your own body detects that a serum testosterone increase has occurred, it usually downregulates its own production. So if you have a combination herb that also keeps your testosterone naturally producing higher, that is a pharmacological multi-compound drug that is not something that grows on a tree.
Right.
Sorry.
1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Ooh, I'm gonna do the Jeff Nippard. It's just a little bit more than enough protein than you need for almost all cases. And because it's just a little bit more than enough, if you eat a relatively balanced diet, it obviates the need to pay high attention to protein quality. And it's a really easy number to remember. And if you live in the great nation of the United States of America, then you do pounds, goddamn. Woo!
But grams for food still.
Woo!
Okay, I'll say properly rated as well. I like 1 gram per pound with the caveat that it is actually more than you need in almost all instances. When cutting, I would say 1 gram per pound is a good rule. When bulking, you probably only need like 0.7 or 0.8 grams per pound.
What about body recomposition, also known as recomping?
I think recomping is underrated because most people in the general population can very reasonably expect to build muscle while losing fat at the same time, even though a lot of people in fitness culture tend to say, oh, you need to cut in bulk. I don't think that's actually true for most people.
I think those are great and valid points. I'm coming at a slightly different perspective. Just because you can do something and it is effective doesn't mean there's not a better way to do it. Almost all goals that you could achieve with recomping, you could do better with dedicated cutting and bulking. If you want to be jacked or lean, then recomping will only take you so far. And after it runs its course, which is probably in about a year of dedicated recomping, you'll get almost all of it that you will. After that, you're going to have to pull some bigger triggers.
What about diet soda?
Diet soda is, by almost all research accounts, essentially completely inert with regards to your health, and it tastes delicious, and it's amazing, and it's awesome. And it's underrated by people who think it's really bad for you, or who think it's as bad as regular soda, or who think it's worse, and they're just pure make-believe wrong.
So even just switching from regular soda to diet soda can result in weight loss in a lot of people. It can be so good for satiety and reducing cravings on a diet. It's a very underutilized tool.
Diet breaks.
I'm gonna say underrated. There really shouldn't be any like major rush to get lean. I think in general, people try to rush fat loss too much, and they'd be better off just like chilling out a little bit, taking the foot off the gas every once in a while, allowing your training to improve, allowing your muscles to fill back up. People could take a week or two off and just put their calories up to maintenance or even slightly above, and it would actually benefit them in the long run.
I think people like to lose all the weight they need to lose all at the same time. And generally, when it's more than 10% of your body weight, and even that's a high figure, you're gonna have to take a long multi-month diet break for all of the diet fatigue to settle before you go on. So I think lose, 5 to 8% of your body weight, take 2 or 3 months of maintenance, and then try again.
What about clean eating?
Controversy.
I think it's overrated because, for one, it's really, really hard to define. Everybody has a different definition of what eating clean means. If you take it to the extreme, you can get some really disordered eating behaviors. Ultimately, it can become so clean that there's nothing left on the menu. I think it's better to focus on an inclusive approach to diet. So you want to include a variety of different foods. For health, you want to include a bunch of different fruits and vegetables. And I don't really think any foods should be like strictly off the menu.
I think everything you said is valid, but I would say that clean eating is relatively easy to define. It is the absence of intentionally high palatability processed junk food. And I think that taking those foods mostly out of your diet, especially as a fat loss phase gets hard, can be really hugely advantageous. But in most other circumstances, mass gaining, maintenance, and even the beginning of a diet, some fun foods are awesome and a great part of life.
Okay, I would agree with that. On a fat loss phase, you should try to reduce the super palatable, highly processed foods. That makes sense.
The third category is hot fitness topics.
Oh, geez, I thought these were all hot topics.
How do you feel about Natty or not videos?
All right, I'll take this one. From the creator's standpoint, I think they're overrated because I believe in innocent until proven guilty, and if you're just speculating on someone's natural status on scant evidence, then you could be hurting their reputation. From the viewer's standpoint, I don't think they actually give you any value apart from just the fun of the drama, I guess, because the idea is that, oh, if they're not natty, then it's not realistic for me to look like them. But you can't really look like anyone else anyway because of genetic differences, right?
Yes.
So I think that from both the creator's standpoint and the viewer's standpoint, super overrated.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is I think true natty or not journalistic approach where someone who has made a real commitment to being drug-free and is lying about it, I think that's awesome. Exposing those frauds is a great thing. But natty or not videos are like when you've done zero research, you're just yelling at the camera and pretending you know things that you don't about anyone. And by the way, for context, I'm not natty. Just in case anyone wanted to say anything.
Fair enough.
What do you think about the idea that natty training is completely different from enhanced training?
Who wrote these? All right, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like a fiction designed by two people, one natties that need an excuse for why they're not getting jacked, and two drug-addicted idiots that think that they don't have to read science papers.
I would say enhanced people can probably recover better. Is that not true either?
It's a very nuanced topic.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true, but if you're enhanced, that means you're more jacked, and as soon as you become more jacked, that enhanced recovery difference goes away because you're more jacked, you're stronger, you're bigger, and it's way harder to recover, so it just ends up leveling the playing field, and you get so big that you have trouble recovering even though you're enhanced.
So for all intents and purposes, like training principles are training principles.
Yes.
Okay.
Cold showers.
Research vetted way to reduce hypertrophy. If you think that they offer you an effect of that sort of shock therapy, waking you up and it being a sympathetic driver for part of your day, because sympathetic parasympathetic balance is really good, then you don't train hard enough. Go train.
Yeah, I think overrated. I feel like it's just a lot of hype with very, very little evidence.
Except for reduce hypertrophy.
Yeah, reduce hypertrophy. It does seem to definitely do that.
Okay, what about no FAP, also known as semen retention?
Oh, bro. I don't know where the shit started, but in the wild, humans fap. And they also fap with each other. And the overemphasis on the toxicity of both masturbation and is without research support. And there's absolutely unhealthy ways and weird relationships you can get into that. The vast minority of people get into that. If that's you, I feel you. That sucks. You should be getting looked at and treatment and backing off. But for most people, good God, it's just normal and it's just not a big deal.
And there's no evidence that that I'm aware of that it like boosts testosterone to a substantial degree over the long term or that it improves training performance.
All right, locking out the knees is dangerous.
Go ahead.
There's neither evidence nor rationale for that, and your knees are designed to lock out, and if you control the lockout gently and you don't snap into it like a psycho and turn your muscles off at the end, and you're not one of the people with some sort of laxity disorder, you're gonna be just fine. And you need strong knees.
Again, I think it goes back to people approaching training with a very fragile mindset. They think if they just move in slightly the wrong way, then everything's gonna break and it's gonna be the end of them. It's not true.
Filming in gyms.
I think underrated. I think it's overhated. I feel like people hate on people filming at the gym, like, oh, why are you filming at the gym, this and that. I film at the gym and it helps educate people on training. As long as you're not disrespecting other people who maybe don't want to be on camera or violating the gym rules, I'm all for it.
I think as the world becomes more technologically advanced and as more of us start to wear eventually VR glasses, AR glasses, eventually AR contact lenses, being out in public will be implicit consent for being on anyone's video. And also, yeah, of course I'm going to film my training and anyone should be able to film their training too. And if you walk through someone's camera, you will be on camera because you're out in public anyway. Are you kidding me? And Facebook and Instagram and stuff is just another version of public. You were out in the gym, weren't you? If someone's filming in your own private gym and you don't want to be on there, I understand. And also, oh, there's tripods everywhere. So what? Walk around. There's also machines everywhere. Get out of here.
If you didn't see the last video, I did a shoulder workout with Dr. Mike. I'll put a link to that over here somewhere. Make sure you check out his channel. He does all kinds of really good myth-busting style videos, so if you're into that kind of thing, you'll love Renaissance periodization. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys all here in the next one.